So this tutorial will focus on Caverns of Sonora, and this one is, as compared to Batman theme, it's much more lyrical, and it does have some complicated rhythms and some tempo changes that really aren't present in the other one. So there's a few other things that can complicate this one. So starting from the beginning, we have 4 measures of rest, and this doesn't seem like a part that you would need to focus on at first glance, but it could be a good idea just to make sure you know where you're coming in, you know where you're lining up your first note, especially because at 5 in the alto sax 2 part, we have Q notes for the alto sax 1. So these Q notes go all the way until measure 10, and they're tiny little notes that are meant to essentially cue you to know where you are in the piece. So it usually happens after we've had quite a bit of rest, and just to make sure that everybody is counting and everybody's on the same page. So the alto sax 1 players, they'll start and they'll introduce this theme, and then we come in at measure 11. So where it says play on the top of the B in measure 11, that's where the alto sax 2 part starts, and the Q notes stop. So that's mezzo piano, and then to measure 13, we crescendo up into a forte, and we land with an accented note on measure 13. So you want to make sure you're pushing your air through, not to overblow, but enough that you have this full crescendo to a full sound, not necessarily a loud sound, but you want to make sure it's full enough, and you're really landing at 13. And then starting at 14, we open with an accidental, with the B flat. So the way that you're going to want to play B flat is the regular way you played B, right? So the first finger, and then you're going to put your A key down, so 1, 2, and then these keys on the side, you have 3 of them, and the top one's usually like a little curved, and there's 3 right in a line. The bottom one will give you B flat. So you play an A, and then you'll play the side key. I usually play it with my with the knuckle of my first finger, and that's how you get your B flat. So then in that measure, when you go to play an A, you can just lift this side up, and you still have the A like in your left hand. So that's what I would recommend doing there. And then when it gets to 17, it's suddenly faster. So now we are almost doubling, not quite, but almost doubling the speed. So you want to make sure you're making eye contact with your conductor and you're really locking into that new tempo. And that'll become increasingly important, especially when you get to measure 22. So now we have to subdivide in eighth notes. So in this new tempo, we need to think 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and to make sure we can get the 3 and 4 and 1 all together. So then in measure 26, we have another crescendo to forte. So you're starting at mezzo piano in measure 22, your mezzo piano through 25, and then at 26, you have this gradual crescendo to forte. And at 27, you're landing on forte, and you have those 2 accented notes at the end, those 2 accented C sharps. So the way that we're gonna play a C sharp is we're not gonna put any fingers down. No thumb, no left hand, right hand. And it might be a good idea to practice your C sharps with a tuner because you don't put any fingers down. They can get kind of tricky in terms of intonation. So practicing that with a tuner and making sure you're not overblowing, you're giving it enough air, but you're not using too much will really help those sound the best that they can. So at 29, we stay forte. We have some more B flats, and make sure that in measure 30, we play F naturals, which instead of we have F sharps in the key signature, but at 30 we have a written F natural. So instead of playing 1, 2, 3 middle finger, we're gonna play 1, 2, 3 first. And that's gonna give us our F natural. We have another B flat to a B natural. So using either the same fingering as before or the 1-1 fingering, whatever one works best for you. Since we're not going to an A there, it doesn't really matter. Whatever one's easier for you to do. And then starting at measure 37, we have this passage of eighth notes that can get a little tricky. So slowing those down with the metronome can make them a little bit easier. So going a little slowly, these are what those are going to sound like. 1, 2, and ready, and go, and 1. So you really want to make sure that you're building to that, to measure 45, and you're coming down at measure 43. So you want to have this gradual crescendo between B and C, and then eventually you go up chromatically, or there was a little chromaticism at the end, and the way that you play your D sharp going up to the E at the end of 44, you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then you're gonna use this set of keys down here, these two, you're gonna play the top one, and you play it with your pinky. So you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, top pinky. And you really wanna make sure that you are holding that quarter note at 45 for its full value. You don't wanna clip that because it's the end of the phrase. And then similar patterns kind of happen throughout the rest of the song. We have a very similar idea at 67 that we played at 29. So there's elements of it come back, and then making sure like we're hitting those accents, we're hitting those slurs where it's appropriate, and then really landing the last measure, because you have every note is accented, 2 eighth notes, and then the 2 quarter notes. So making sure we're playing a B flat at the beginning of the last measure, and then a B natural at the end of it, because we do overwritten accidentals there, making sure they line up with everybody, can really only happen through watching the conductor, practicing with the metronome at some points, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Just rhythms are a bit trickier in this one just because it is faster, so your fingers have to move faster, your tongue has to move faster, but just that comes with just practicing the song.